Hey, what's going on? Chris Orzechowski here from the emailcopywriter.com. I got a really awesome question from one of my subscribers that I want to answer here because I have a lot of thoughts about it. And I think it's pretty important for the kind of work that you're doing with your own email list. So the question was about what is a good range of dollar amount earned per subscriber on a monthly basis. There's this stat that gets thrown around. A lot of marketers have used it. And they say basically you should be earning $1 per subscriber per month, and that's kind of like where you should be at, right? So if you have a list of 10,000 people, that means you should be earning $10,000 a month from that email list consistently, and that means that you have a quote unquote healthy list. I don't think I would necessarily call that a healthy list. If I, in my own business, only earned $1 per subscriber per month, I'd probably have to fire every single person in my organization. So, not that we're doing just fine, so we don't have to worry about that, right? Well, that's the thing. It's like you hear these numbers and you hear these metrics, and you're like, "What's good? What's bad? What's accurate? What's the standard? What's like the industry average?" Right? And maybe if you have a huge, enormous list. If you have 400,000 people and you're earning 400K a month, okay, maybe maybe those numbers make sense, but I think it's going to kind of be different for everyone. And to ask the question, like, what is a good, earnings per subscriber? That's really the metric that I like to use to assess overall list health. Whenever I'm looking at a client, that's one of the first calculations. When I'm looking under a client's dashboard, their email software, that's usually one of the first calculations that I do. Now, this is a little bit different than earnings per recipient that you might see in Klaviyo or something like that with a specific flow or a specific campaign. This is talking about how much money did we earn from email from the list, right? You should have multiples. Like it shouldn't just be $1 per email subscriber unless you just really have an enormous list. But think about what goes into that metric. And the reason I love this as a North Star metric is because there's so many different ways to affect that variable. If you know what your number is, then it's very easy to say, okay, we're earning, $1.30 per subscriber, right? Like, how do we get to $2 a subscriber? How do we get to $3 per subscriber per month, right? Like, what would you have to do? What changes would you have to make? And there's a lot of things you could do. First thing you do is you send more frequently, right? Just sending more emails will probably, if they're good emails and you have good offers and you go into the right segments, that should probably increase your sales. You could also tighten up the segment that you're sending to. Maybe you have a lot of dead weight on your list. So an immediate way to increase that metric, that earnings per subscriber metric, is just cut off all the dead weight. So it doesn't necessarily mean you go in and delete all the people who haven't opened in a certain amount of time, right? There's best practices. You might want to run them through a sunset flow. You might want to run them through something like, there's these softwares out there, and their names are escaping me, of course, as I'm filming this. But there are softwares where you could run your list through and see if there's any spam trap emails or any dead emails or any emails that keep bouncing that you could, safely remove. And, if you remove maybe 2, 5, 10% of that list, that's really just completely unresponsive and hasn't bought anything, and it's been on the list for a while, they haven't opened, they haven't clicked, they haven't been on site, they haven't done any of those things. You cut those people off and automatically that's going to push up your earnings per subscriber. And obviously that's just us kind of playing with the numbers, but what does that mean for the rest of your subscribers? It means you're sending to less people, you're sending to more engaged people. So over time, your deliverability will get better. So you see how when we look and optimize for that one metric alone, everything tends to get better and better because you're making smarter decisions. Another thing too is, okay, how many back-end automations do you have that are pushing up your client's your customer's lifetime value, right? That's another easy way. If you don't even have to send any more emails or do anything to the size of the list or the health of the list, you could just say, okay, we're going to have some back-end automations, post-purchase, win-backs, cart amendment, browse amendment, all those kind of things that are going to push up your revenue because now you're earning more per customer. So when we look at that metric, that earnings per subscriber metric, that's really the most important thing. And it's really not uncommon for, a client with a good list. I mean, we've had clients who had about, 19, 20,000 people who are earning 100K a month from email. So that is about, give or take, a $5 earnings per subscriber per month. And I don't think that's unreasonable. Again, it's going to differ industry to industry. And it's really hard for you to say, okay, well, look at this person's list, one of my competitors or this person that I know, they have this earnings per subscriber and mine is only, maybe it's lower, maybe it's higher, whatever it is. Sometimes you're doing an apples to oranges comparison, but what I always say is don't necessarily compare your earnings per subscriber number to everyone else. Compare it to what you did last month, right? It's like, how do you push up your earnings per subscriber higher and higher? For instance, if you have a consumable product business versus, purchases that are more of a one-off purchase, those numbers are going to differ. So it's hard to compare, but you can compare against yourself and compete against yourself and look for ways to optimize that number, that earnings per subscriber, and say month after month, how do we continue to push up our EPS? So that way we know we're trending in the right direction. We're trending in the right direction with the amount of sends, with the amount of segmentation we're doing, and list health and list cleanliness that we're keeping by making sure we're cutting off all the dead weight. Getting rid of all the bottom feeders who are kind of dragging me down off that list, right? So that's kind of it. That is always like my North Star metric. It's the most important thing that I look at. And what this does is when you optimize for that, it kind of forces you to think about how do we keep this list as healthy and as high performing as possible. So calculate your earnings per subscriber. If you need help getting that number up, we have tons of strategies to do that. If you'd like to work with myself and my team, we have a pretty cool way that we can do that. We have this program called the Winner Circle. It's a group coaching program where we basically get to work with you. You get to work with our agency. We get to help you and give you all the strategy and guidance and feedback that you need, in addition to ongoing trainings that we're constantly coming out with that are going to help you become a badass email marketer. And you get to do all that and work with us without having to pay agency fees. So it's really, really cool because you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get to save a little bit of capital that can be reinvested in other parts of your business, but you get all of our strategy and guidance, and we will give you personal help to help you grow. So if you want, there's a link underneath in the description or whatever of this video. But make sure you check that out. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you turn on notifications so you can get notified when I come out with new videos. And if you're not already on my list, make sure you get on my list. Go to theemailcopywriter.com, sign up, get a free copy of my book, Make It Rain, read it, and go make some money. All right, that's it.